August 16, 1977, paramedics were dispatched to Graceland. Elvis Presley's girlfriend, Ginger Alden, was there at the time, along with one of Elvis's closest friends, Joe Esposito. Elvis Presley was a legend, beloved by millions, but the circumstances surrounding his death have been shrouded in mystery. For the first time, dramatic new evidence that proves that Elvis Presley was more than the king of rock and roll, much more. What secret business was Elvis Presley conducting with two different American presidents? Why was Elvis Presley's middle name misspelled on his own grave? Who was this man photographed at Elvis's house 4 months after Elvis allegedly passed away?
I started traveling.
Who was this mysterious phone caller, captured in a conversation recorded in 1981? Why is Elvis Presley's name found on over 1,400 pages of FBI documents? And why are some of these documents still classified? All this and much more. From the Imperial Palace Hotel and Casino and the Legends in Concert showroom in Las Vegas, in a television exclusive, the real story behind the event that shocked the world, the Elvis Files. Maria Columbus is the president of the oldest Elvis fan club.
30, 40 minutes later, Vernon Presley called us.
Monty Nicholson is an investigator for the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department.
The body may very well not have been Elvis Presley.
Gail Brewer Giorgio is the best-selling author of Is Elvis Alive? And the Elvis Files.
The only place it's misspelled is at the plaque at Graceland, the final resting place.
Paul Wiest is an internationally renowned handwriting expert.
And handwriting notations were made on them, and Elvis Presley's own handwriting.
Luc Dion is an author and political advisor to the Quebec government and a foreign consultant.
But Elvis Presley was a federal agent, there's no doubt about that.
All these men and women share one thing. They believe that Elvis Presley may still be alive. They will tell you why. And now, our host on the Elvis Files, Bill Bixby.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Hello and welcome to the Elvis Files. Now, the stage was Elvis Presley's second home. He spent much of his life performing live to millions of his adoring fans. But we're here to look at another side of Elvis. F. Scott Fitzgerald once said, "The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposing ideas in one's mind at the same time." Well, that's what we're asking you to do. Now, I'm sure if we took a hand vote, most of us believe that Elvis Presley passed away August 16th, 1977. Would you raise your hands? All right. Now, may we see hands for those who think that Elvis may be alive? Very interesting. Thank you. All right, I must say that I was inclined to go along with the first group. But we think that by the end of our program, you too will be able to hold two opposing ideas in your mind. First, that Elvis Presley passed away in 1977, and secondly, that he still may be alive. Some of the reasons why you might be able to do this are contained right in here. Inside these FBI files is dramatic evidence that there was more to Elvis Presley than meets the eye, much more. These documents prove that Elvis Presley may have had a life or death reason for disappearing from public view. And they also hold information that strongly suggests he was still alive at least 4 years after he was found dead. Now, during this show, we're not going to open any vaults. We're not going to dwell on the Elvis that the world knows so well, the singer, the musician, the actor, and the star. Instead, we're going to show you an Elvis that you never knew before, a man who may have risked everything for the good of his country.
We've brought together a panel of experts who think there was a whole lot more to Elvis Presley than meets the eye, and they're going to share what they know with you. But first, we need to go back to that tragic day in August of 1977 when the world learned that Elvis Presley was gone.
My father was listening to the radio in the back while he was working, and when he told us, we just stopped and cried. It was unbelievable.
He's a guy that shouldn't be dead today.
And the radio announced that he died, and God, we both looked at each other and said, we couldn't believe it, you know.
I do remember being, crying and being all upset because, you had that feeling about him like he was one of us.
It was on the television, the news is how I heard about it. I just felt very sad.
He's like one of the greatest musicians that ever lived.
Every time I see Elvis or hear Elvis sing or see a movie, I get this real warm feeling.
I remember him dying, and I hope his soul's in heaven.
He was a very sensitive and very kind, compassionate human being.
Elvis was the best, the greatest, and of course the king.
It didn't take very long after the announcement that Elvis Presley had died for the crowds of mourners to gather. From all over the world, they came to pay their final respects to a man whom they felt had always respected them. Elvis had been placed in a casket, open for viewing at Graceland. No cameras were allowed by order of the Presley estate. Silently, mourners passed by to say their final farewells. Elvis's cousin, Gene Smith, felt he had to personally say goodbye to the man he had loved so much.
When we viewed the body for the last time, I stood there quite a while looking at his hands. And of course, he was always breaking bricks with his hands. He had calluses on the bottom of his hand, and big old rough-looking knuckles. His nose looked kind of puggy looking, and his right sideburn was sticking out straight out looked about an inch. And his hairline looked as if it had been a hairpiece, something glued on somewhere. It just didn't look right. And his hands was just as smooth as a newborn's baby's behind, And it seemed like it was sweating around his hairline. It could have been sweat, it could have been glue, I don't know. But I just didn't believe it was him.
Gene was not the only person who noticed that something seemed odd. Maria Columbus, for 20 years now, the president of the Elvis Presley fan club, also experienced some things out of the ordinary. Now, when I spoke to Maria a few weeks back, she had this to say.
Tell me what happened when you learned of Elvis's passing.
We were very shocked. And the first thing we did was call Graceland. And we tried to get hold of Elvis's father, but he was obviously busy. And so we left a message to have him call us. And about 30, 40 minutes later, Vernon Presley called us. We told him that we were going to be, flying out there within a couple of hours, and Vernon asked us not to come. But he told us that it was going to be too hectic and too emotional at that time, and too busy. He wouldn't be able to really see us, and he said it would be better if we went the week after.
Why do you think that Vernon asked you to wait a week before you came there?
We thought that perhaps he felt we would have noticed things, you know, little details that weren't right, and we would have questioned them. And maybe it would have caused an embarrassing moment for the family.
When you got there, a week later, what was the atmosphere?
It was a very carnival atmosphere. We went over to the cemetery. Elvis was in a mausoleum. And there were people selling Cokes and popcorn, and there were people posing with the guards, because they had guards in front of the mausoleum door. We felt nothing of Elvis. And that was carried over a few months later when we got a hold of the inventory of Elvis's estate. It's about 84 pages long. And it felt wrong. There were so many things missing that should have been on there.
I mean, personal items that you were aware of?
Right. Elvis's diaries were not listed, his journals. There was even a plane missing. He was listed as having 6 or 7 pieces of jewelry, and you know, I'm sure you know Elvis had more jewelry than that.
Oh, yeah.
No photographs of his mother listed. None of his daughter.
But he had quite a number of photographs of his mother, if I remember correctly.
Right.
But if it wasn't Elvis Presley in the coffin, then who was it? Someone who might have that answer is Gail Brewer Giorgio. Gail is the author of the best-selling books, The Elvis Files and Is Elvis Alive? Now, here's what she had to say when we spoke last week. Let me ask you a question with regard to your book, The Elvis Files. It's significant to you that the name Aaron was misspelled. Why is that so significant?
Elvis was born an identical twin. His twin brother, Jesse Garon, died at birth. With great thought and deliberation, Elvis's parents named him Elvis, A-R-O-N, so that whenever Elvis saw the name of Jesse Garon, he'd always know that Aaron was a part of Garon. So emphatic were his parents to have A-R-O-N spelled with a single A, that when the doctor mistakenly filled out the first birth certificate with 2 A's, this was on January 10th, 1935, they insisted a new one be written, which was dated January 12th, 1935, this new one with the single A spelling. From the time Elvis was able to sign his name, it was Elvis, A-R-O-N. Elvis himself told many people he spelled his middle name with a single A. Biographers and researchers attest to this spelling. Even the Tennessee Historical Commission reports it's A-R-O-N, not A-A-R-O-N. All legal documents show it as A-R-O-N. Yet on Elvis's grave, it is misspelled. It reads Elvis, A-A-R-O-N, Presley. Why?
As you know, Elvis was steeped heavily in numerology, that by adding another A to his name, he changed the vibrations of his letters, and he would have been a higher spiritual number. He would have gone up to a 9.
Ladies and gentlemen, Gail Brewer Giorgio. Welcome. All right, I must ask, Gail, isn't it possible that in the haste of putting Elvis to rest, some innocent mistakes were made?
Well, I think the key word, Bill, is haste. Why the haste in having such a grand funeral? Why the misspelling of a name on a grave? Why the moving of the grave? That doesn't make sense. And I believe that a lot of these so-called mistakes are clues.